It was literally within the case of a month, it's actually quadrupled. We're seeing daily inquiries of about over 40-50 patients a day. The asymptomatic, is easier to can even be home quarantined possibly in the future. I would say majority of the patients, well over 90-95% of them are all going home. Very few people are turning very sick. I definitely think vaccination will help to bring down the current episodes of COVID. Vaccine doesn't mean you're no risk for COVID.
The second wave of COVID-19 is getting serious in the country, but situation in Coimbatore is not as worse as other northern districts. We asked Arun.N.Palaniswami about the second wave and several questions have been raised in connection with it. And this is what he has to say. In general, what is your view on the COVID situation?
The COVID second wave, I believe, has caught everyone by surprise. The reason being is the rate at which it's increasing and its doubling time. As you know, during the first wave, we were preparing for the first wave from last year, March, until the wave in Coimbatore only hit us in July. Those cases started rapidly increasing. Now, it was literally within the case of a month, it's actually quadrupled. So the hospitals have been scrambling up, not just to add resources, but to add resources very quickly. That means rearranging supplies, creating more beds. Quickly, we have to switch from one mode to another mode. Literally, we created a second ICU. Literally, one day prior, we thought we'll create a second ICU. We transferred the patient out. And next thing you know, within 2 days, that second ICU was full. So that's how fast the wave has been hitting us. And then we're having to adapt.
What is the average COVID patient intake at KMCH per day?
Average inquiries, because people are getting tested outside and as well as in the hospital, we're seeing daily inquiries of about over 40-50 patients a day. Majority are asymptomatic, but we do get about 5 requests for very sick patients to come in once a day for the ICU beds, which is putting pressure on the system. The asymptomatic, is easier to can even be home quarantined possibly in the future. But the very sick cases, having enough staffing and support for the very sick cases is putting the system under strain.
How many are getting discharged per day at KMCH?
I would say majority of the patients, well over 90-95% of them are all going home. Very few people are turning very sick. This is due to our training and our prior experience with COVID. We have all the equipments we need before. We have the experience with COVID, how to, I think every ICU doctor and everyone says what the major difference is if you act early and aggressively at early stages of COVID to prevent them from getting sick. With that experience, we're now using it to our best ability to decrease the mortality.
How much have you increased your bed strength?
Right now, we used one of our medical college blocks as an isolation block. Right now, that's not sufficient for the amount of volume we're getting. So we're dedicating one of the two brand new blocks for COVID patients. That should bring our total bed capacity up to about 250 for COVID in that block alone. Plus, in that block, of that 250, about 30-40 will be a step-down, ICU step-down, and oxygen beds.
How much have you increased your workforce?
Since this last COVID wave, usually in the month of December, we went about recruiting nurses to replace probably the old nurses who are now getting job opportunities to go elsewhere, abroad as well. Their visas started opening up. So we went on a massive hiring spree. We hired over 500 plus nurses, over 20, I think 15, 20 respiratory therapists, dialysis technicians, and other technical and paramedical staff. Still, we weren't expected for the sudden surge I would say, in the number of COVID cases, which is even putting our current staffing at stress because it's hard to plan for a surge you don't know at the time because you lose a lot of spare capacity. Now, we hired extra nurses because we thought it would take more time to train them and to make up for, but now we're putting them to good use. So luckily we had a few extra nurses in our system, but it'll be very strenuous for us to say add more beds than this.
How is the vaccination going on? Do you think vaccines will help in this situation?
I definitely think vaccination will help to bring down the current episodes of COVID. Although there are certain effects, the vaccine doesn't mean you're no risk for COVID. You can still become an asymptomatic carrier even if you're vaccinated. So there is a study that says that people who get vaccinated then start doing more risky behavior. So still, I think it's pretty much we still have to wear a mask, socially distance, and stay safe. So I think that's pretty much still the same rule that we should apply. Avoid large unnecessary gatherings, and then we wear masks and we keep ourselves safe, especially those high at risk.
From May 1, vaccines will be available for all 18 plus individuals. What is your message to them?
So I think it's your job to get a vaccine for all those who need it. And I think, we should get pulled through this. Don't be scared. You stay safe, wear a mask. And, India's been through tougher times than this, and we'll be through we'll always persevere.